Hello and welcome back to the channel. Or if it's your first time, welcome to the channel. So there's been a lot of talk lately about how AI and specifically generative AI is going to kill photography, ruin photography, whatever you want to say. The reality is there have always been things that people have said are going to kill photography. And the reality is that it's really not true. Certainly there are certain types of commercial photographers that'll be affected. I think product photographers probably have the most to worry about. But if you're a wedding photographer, event photographer, there's really nothing that generative AI can do to take away from that. If you do other types of photography, real estate, there's new laws being put in place around Truth in Advertising. California recently passed some new laws about that. So I think for the most part, things are pretty safe when it comes to this new technology. And it's really no different than any other time that technology has been introduced. You can, if you go back and do some research, you can find articles written about how 35 millimeter film was going to ruin photography. And then the SLR and autofocus and digital and Photoshop and the Polaroid and the iPhone and just take your pick. What it really comes down to, I think, is why do we take photos? What is it that gets us to go out with these things and take photos of things? Most people that are photographers are not what I would classify as professional. Doesn't mean that they're not really, really good photographers. Doesn't mean that they're not great photographers. All it means is that they don't do it for money. They do it because they just enjoy the process. And that could be whether it's competing in their camera clubs and trying to get that unique photo, or maybe they just like to go out into nature or into urban environments. Street photographers especially, I think, just like to find those just kind of moments out there. Or maybe it's people that just travel and just like to, just document what it is that they're discovering out there. So what it really comes down to is, why do you take photos? And I think when you look at that, you'll realize that generative AI and AI in general isn't really going to have that big of an impact on what you do. You're still going to enjoy doing the same things that you've been doing all along. And maybe it's something that just for kind of a funny thing, you may use it a little bit, especially if you're into travel, maybe put a unicorn or something into one of your photos. I don't know. Does it cease to be a photo at that point? Well, sure, it becomes more of an illustration, I think. But certainly there's a lot that you can do when it comes to playing around with the technology, but not having it ruin photography, as they say. For me, it really comes down to a couple of different things. One is nature. I enjoy being out in nature. It's fun to get out and create. I like looking for both realistic subjects as well as abstract subjects. If you've watched my channel for a while, I sometimes even like to do things like play around with doing forced perspective with toys and that sort of thing. I also like to do travel photography, and it's really more kind of a combination of a couple of different things. One is to go and really document places that I've been, just as kind of a memory. And it's important when you do that not to skip over those quote cliche photos, because they're your cliche photos and you're at that location at that time, and it's going to just bring back that memory. The other thing is that it's often something where you just want to just go out and have a connection with nature. And I think for me, that falls into it too, sometimes. So it's a beautiful day today. It's like 2 degrees, which some people probably sounds pretty miserable, but it's sunny, there's no wind. if you dress right, it's just a great time to be out here. Winter photography is an amazing time with some really clean photos. And so what I thought I would do in this video is just go and grab some photos actually of some trees and that. Naked trees in the wintertime when the leaves are gone, all that structure. I think it's a pretty fascinating subject. So it kind of gets back to what I was just talking about with things like just looking for some abstracts and just, being in nature itself. And then also just grabbing some just great nature photos at the same time. This is one of my favorite trees. And I think I photographed this many different times of the year, but definitely in the winter time. And I think this is a good example of what I was talking about earlier, where I think AI, generative AI, really can't replace a scene like this where you find a very interesting subject and you kind of work that area to see, or kind of work that subject, I should say, to see what you can really get and what you can create. And I'm not sure what kind of prompt you would even have to put in. I'm sure somebody maybe will put in the comments exactly what they do to create something similar. But I'm just going to go and try to take several different angles of this tree, take advantage of some of that lichen that's on it, some of the unique shape, the fact that I've got that dead section in the middle where part of the tree broke off, what looks like arms, maybe a little bit of anthropomorphism in some of these photos. And here's what I came up with. So here are two more really interesting trees kind of in that back area behind the tree that we saw earlier. And both of them have kind of their own unique properties to them. The one, I just really like that canopy, the one over on the left. And I think there's quite a bit you could do there. With the leaves being gone, you could see all of that really great structure, the way the branches all kind of interweave and work the way around. And then the one on the right, that one looks like, similar to the one we saw earlier, has had certainly some struggles. And the way that the branches dip down and come up, I think is quite interesting. There's the one that goes down to the ground. Looks like that's probably something that broke off at one time. You could see there's one part of the trunk going up too that doesn't look like is alive anymore, but the rest of the tree certainly is, and just really makes for a really nice subject. So I think this is another set of trees to really kind of spend some time with and see what kind of photos I can pull out of. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. If you'd like to know about future videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I try to do one about once a month, usually somewhere between the 12th and the 17th. Usually try to shoot for a Friday. So feel free to go ahead and do that. And I guess just kind of one sort of parting idea or thought that I will give is that technology is always going to be evolving. There's always going to be new things, new tools, and that shouldn't be something that causes stress. If you look at some of the famous photographers in the past, they've always tried to push the envelope. Ansel Adams did some amazing things in the darkroom, and he was criticized for that. William Eggelston tried some printing techniques that were used more in the cinema and movie making and applied that to still photography. And there's a really interesting article that I just read recently. I put a link down in the description below to it, where it talked about how in general people were just up in arms. He got bad reviews from the New Yorker, the New York Times, probably a lot of others as well, just because it was something a little bit different and something that he was experimenting with. People saying it's not real looking. Think of things like, HDR today, or overly processing things, and that's subjective in itself in Photoshop or Skylum or Luminar, On1, whatever your favorite editing software is. The point is, really, it's whatever you're creating makes you happy is fine. If that means you want to add a little bit of generative AI to it, or maybe a lot, that's fine. For me, that's not something that I will probably do. For me, I like just trying to capture what's really out there in nature, try to do a lot of problem solving when it comes to figuring out what's going to make a good photo or not going to make a good photo. So again, thanks for watching. Bye.